Mellow greetings, everybody. My name is James. I am from the internet, and today we are going to be talking about the kids. Now, for those of you who come here most days for my high energy, witty, sardonic style, as I find some story and then do a little digging and then explain to you why it's a hell of a lot more important than the news media or the government or corporations are letting on, I would like to apologize to you because today is not that day, and this is not going to be that video. Rather, we need to have a conversation about some things around the Oxford High School shooting in Michigan last week. I really haven't had a whole lot to say about it since it happened for a multitude of reasons, not the least of which is that I have a funny feeling that after they do more investigating and more information gets released and we get closer to trials, we're all going to find out that there was a very long list of failures, the failure of parents, the failure of classmates, the failure of teachers, the school system, and dare I say, an entire community. And the reason for that is because every single time there is a mass shooting, nobody can get a word in edgewise because all the extremists want to run to the fore and claim the event as their new place to plant their flag and get some rage clicks. That's right, the conservatives will come crawling out of the woodwork, screaming about how if everybody had a gun, including teachers, and they were all highly trained, well then, most of this damage could have been mitigated, and kids would stop coming to school with weapons trying to shoot it up because they know their teacher would smoke them. Meanwhile, the liberal extremists, no better, want to immediately flock to Twitter and start screaming about how we have to ban hundreds of millions of guns overnight to end this horrible culture and damn those conservatives and the Constitution and the Second Amendment and the logistics involved in actually trying to figure out how the hell you get all the guns out of this country, considering that most of the guns are manufactured in this country and they are actually the darling industry of a multitude of senators and congressional reps, a lot of whom are actually also liberal Democrats. So I leave the reactionary shit to the reactionaries. However, I do want to have a larger conversation about a whole lot of ancillary stories that I've seen since this shooting, and then I want to maybe posit a theory about how horrible all of this is and how most, if not all of us, share some of the blame. So here we go. We are going to start very briefly with the CNN article, mostly because there's one statistic here I want to drop on you before I show you the collage of stories that I have collected. High school teacher Sarah Giddings stayed home again on Friday after more online threats and jittery nerves force her school and others in Southeast Michigan to close. Giddings, 39, comes from a family of educators who, along with school staff, students, and their parents across the nation, have become unwilling participants in a reoccurring American nightmare. The copycat threats have been rising since Tuesday's shootings at Oxford High School. It was the deadliest at a U.S. K-12 campus since 2018, and the 32nd school shooting since August 1st. Now, doing some quick back-of-the-napkin math, that's more than 6 shootings per month, every month since schools have reopened. So obviously, this isn't an isolated incident that happened last week. So let me give you a broad overview of exactly where the kids are at and what the hell is going on out there, since there have been 6 shootings a month every month since schools came back into session. Well, to start with, it would appear that child abuse cases are on the rise. I'm going to assume a lot of this has to do with all of the stress caused by COVID lockdowns, caused by economic insecurity, and caused by people not knowing what's coming next. Also, when kids are abused, it's not kids' fault. This is an adult problem, a grown-up problem, an us problem. So let's take a look at how kids act out after 6 school shootings a month and increased child abuse. It would appear that all of our combined grown-up stress, combined with the stress of going back to school for the first time in 2 years, is causing the kids to act out. In fact, calling in school shootings or posting about thinking about shooting up your school is now very commonplace among school students. In Macomb County, Michigan, Southlake High School students were sent home on Thursday after reports of a bomb threat. Quote by the local sheriff, "I can tell you overnight in about an 8-hour period, we handled 28 complaints from parents or students who believed they either heard about a threat, witnessed a threat, or things that were posted on social media. And throughout the night, and even until late today, our detectives and investigators and youth bureau officers were following up on every one of those complaints, whether they are credible or not credible." So once again, all of this stress is becoming too much, and the kids are acting out. In Miami-Dade, 2 students were arrested over threats on Instagram about wanting to shoot their school up. Threats of violence at Miami-Dade County schools have led to the arrest of 2 teenage students and an increased police presence on some campuses. The threats were not credible, police said. The teenagers who were arrested on Monday are students at Miami Senior High School and Miami Northwestern Senior High School, police said. They are facing felony charges of written threats to kill or do bodily harm. According to an arrest report, the 15-year-old student at Miami High posted a message on Instagram in Spanish that translated to, "I am going to kill everyone at Miami Senior High School. Do not go to school if you don't want to die on December 6th. Everybody is going to see the anger inside of me." Yes, this is the Instagram post that the police deemed to be not a threat. According to the local school district, the investigation into other related threats continues. Quote, "We've dealt with about 12 different threats over the last week, and all of them were non-credible or hoaxes." Now, for the record, every single school district and state official will call all threats hoaxes unless the people are actually found with weapons in schools. Because, God, that would be bad publicity if people thought there were credible threats of shootings at more schools. But school officials don't want the public to think that because they really like their 6-figure administrative jobs. You know, the ones that most school systems have become so top-heavy with that schools can't afford teachers, or phys ed, or music. Rather, all they can afford is more 6-figure administrators. Gee, I wonder why the kids are so extra stressed out. In Massachusetts, 3 high school students were charged after posting pictures of, quote, a realistic-looking pellet gun and telling people not to go to school. A group of high school students in the Whitman-Hanson Regional School District will face unspecified charges after officials said they posted photos to social media of a realistic-looking pellet gun and told people not to come to school on Monday. But those posts followed non-specific threats made against a number of school districts over the weekend. Whitman-Hanson was not mentioned in the weekend threats, but police were already stationed at Whitman-Hanson Regional High School in increased numbers as a precaution anyway. During an investigation by the school district and police, the students involved and their families fully cooperated. Officials did not find there to be a credible threat against the school. Why? Because nobody actually got shot or got caught on campus with a gun. Ergo, they will just say it was not credible. And I guess that leaves us to credible threats. Hey, look, students arrested for making threats and bringing loaded guns to Alabama schools. In the wake of a deadly school shooting in Michigan, officials there say a wave of shooting threats have forced several other schools to close. Here in Alabama, officials are also dealing with school shooting threats and reports of guns in schools. In Dallas County, 3 students were arrested for bringing loaded handguns to Southside High School. The students were arrested after investigators received an anonymous tip. In Mobile, a 15-year-old was arrested for threatening to shoot up Mary G. Montgomery High School and Semmes Middle School. The teen posted the threat on Instagram. And again, while everybody wants to argue about what threat is and is not credible and who should and should not be packing heat to threaten students into not packing heat, again is lost the much larger issue that kids are crying out for help and nobody is listening because it's ideologically inconvenient, and we would be forced to look at how we all conduct ourselves as adults, at home, in communities, and in society at large. And then we all might have to take a little bit of responsibility, and we can't let that shit happen now, can we? 2 separate El Paso County students arrested for having weapons at school. A Vista Ridge High School student was arrested on charges of a juvenile in possession of a firearm and interference with school staff on Monday. One of his family members was also arrested for failure to securely store a firearm. The Colorado Springs Police Department said potential threats to the school and staff prompted an investigation and closure of the high school. Gee, guess we can't call that one a non-credible threat, eh? Also, hey look, yet another parent arrested, for being negligent. And now to prove my point that ideological extremists are literally the source of most of these problems and the reason why kids can't keep both fucking oars in the water long enough to have a sane mental health day at school, here you go. Hopkins teacher suspended for violent detailed comments about Oxford shooting. A teacher was suspended from Hopkins High School while Michigan State Police investigated violent and detailed comments that students said he made in class. The high school principal said the comments referenced physical violence and weapons on the day after the deadly shootings at Oxford High School. Quote, "The things that he said, how he would have committed the act differently with detail, is extremely scary," said a parent who did not reveal her identity in fear of retaliation from extremists. The parent said her child heard the teacher make the comments in a class on Wednesday. Quote, "He said he would have pulled a smoke detector so that he could create a distraction in order to carry out his hit list and kill the people that he would need to," said the parent. "It was gut-wrenching devastation that a grown adult would mentally harm our children in this way." And this right here brings us into the actual conversation we actually need to have. Now, I know you don't want to hear this, but we are quite literally headed towards collapse. There is no structure in the house of cards that holds us all together as people who live in the same society. Because there is no middle anymore. There is only black and white, light and dark, good or evil. You're with us or you're against us. You're part of the solution or you're part of the problem. And this two-style juxtaposed extremist thing, well, this is just a byproduct of having a government that's built exactly the same way. And because politicians have figured out the best way to get people to support them is to whip them up into a frenzy, well, now we have a society that is built upon polar opposite extremists. And what we're all forgetting is that caught in the middle is all the kids. The kids are not all right. They are listening to your bullshit, my bullshit, and everybody else's bullshit every single day. Now, unfortunately, the solution is bigger than all of us. Yes, we could all individually change our behaviors. I've gone out of my way to have more productive conversations with people who don't have the same ideological belief as myself. And yes, when people witness and hear those conversations, it does perhaps help them slightly change how they deal with people, and so on and so forth. And while this can have a cascading effect, none of this means absolutely anything as long as we are all built within a system that is extremist and bipolar and ideologically juxtaposed. And politicians are not going to take their foot off the gas, because by creating this dual mob mentality, they have created a never-ending source of income, of donations from the ideologically offended, from the people looking for someone to champion them in the halls of Congress, no matter how extreme or ludicrous their beliefs are, totally ignoring the fact that they got to that place in life because of everybody else around them screaming that you have to be on one side or the other. We all need to do better as people. But until we get a better system, we are all merely a stopgap in the never-ending march to our own demise. Until next time, my name is James. I am from the internet, and I am out. Peace.